We are about to hear from Park University students Ryan Lee, Larken, Hoar, and Patience Dadzie, joined by Park instructor and peer review of teaching coordinator Amanda St. George, who will discuss the role of AI and academic integrity and what that can mean for our classrooms, our assignments, and even our student culture. We talked about this before sort of as a group, but our efforts and understanding as instructors, faculty, leadership, only have meaning in as much as they resonate and impact our students. My face just got really big all of a sudden. And Ryan, Larkin, and Patience are not just Park students, but also TAs, tutors, student athletes, and generally just leaders on campus who have engaged with student perspectives across the institution and on this topic. So we are just incredibly grateful to have them with us here today, especially it's the first week of classes. I think behind the scenes, we're trying to pin everyone to make sure that we can all see them, but thank you all just so much for being here. So I think I'll wait for everyone to show and I'll share the one slide I meant to share just to give them their due recognition because we are very grateful to have them all here with us. Oh, and I see every one of you. Okay, but I will stop share because I really want this to feel much more like a conversation. Just give me 1 second to switch gears. Okay. But to start, that was sort of a very overarching introduction. I would love for each of you to introduce yourselves more fully. So just what are your many roles at Park? Where are you calling in from? We can just sort of go around the boxes here. Ryan, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. Can you hear me well?
We got you.
Perfect. Yeah, so my name's Ryan Lee. I'm a tutor and mentor at Park University, the Gilbert campus in Arizona. As you can probably tell, I sound a little bit different. I am from London. I'm an international student. I'm also the men's soccer captain here as well. I'm majoring in psychology and I'm a senior. I'll be graduating in May.
Oh, that's awesome. Larkin, do you want to jump in?
Hi everyone, I'm Larkin. I am going to graduate in May with my bachelor's in sports and exercise science. I'm also a peer tutor at the Gilbert campus, and I am captain of the women's basketball team.
Thank you, Larkin. And Patience, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Erica. Hi, everybody. I'm Patience Dadzie, originally from Ghana, F1 student and a graduate student studying innovation and quality management, also a graduate assistant for first year experience.
Thank you. And Amanda, can you give us a quick summary of your role here at Park and why this conversation feels particularly important in your work?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda St. George, and I serve as Park University in two intersecting different roles. So first, as a coordinator of peer review of teaching program, where I work with peer reviewers, mentors, academic affairs, the FAST team, and TLC to support the quality and integrity of online education. I also am an adjunct faculty in social behavioral sciences at our Gilbert Park campus. So this conversation is particularly important to me because I experienced firsthand the same instructional challenges, assessment decisions, and evolving classroom realities that all of us are facing right now.
Thank you, Amanda. And you guys can see it in the chat, but everyone is likewise sort of just blown away by how much the three of you are doing at and for Park. So just this is a powerhouse panel, and I was very much looking forward to this as part of the conference since the get-go. But I want to sort of start with sort of a basic question. So rather than making assumptions on our own as educators or as instructors, we wanted to start with maybe the most important question of all. What do you guys wish instructors better understood about being a student in the age of AI? And maybe we can just follow the same order of responses. It doesn't really matter, but feel free to jump in.
Yeah, okay, I'll go first, as I'm first in the order. So for me, the most important thing that I think instructors don't understand about students and their use of AI is that perhaps not all AI is cheating or laziness. Some of it might actually be true application. So as a tutor myself, I tutor writing and psychology. So I do a lot of APA tutoring. And I always recommend to people to get AI to check their reference lists or make corrections, make hints. Maybe they have to use Chicago referencing in a class, and they usually use APA. So I think the use of AI for things like that, it saves time, it's efficient. You don't have to use the lecturer's time. So it can be used as an effective tool. And to me, not all AI is through laziness or cheating.
Mine's kind of in the same path. I think a lot of teachers just assume that if a student is using AI, that they're trying to cheat. And like Ryan said, I think most of the time it might be coming from a perspective of not knowing what to do in the assignment, or sometimes students, they see a very long list of directions or instructions on an assignment, especially online classes where they don't hear what the instructor is saying and they're just reading it, and it's maybe not clicking to them what they need to be doing. And so they, instead of, using AI to better understand the assignment, I think they try to use AI to do the assignment, where like when they come in for tutoring or things like that, we try to teach them that they can use AI to just summarize the instructions, break it down for them a little bit, and just better understand things for themselves.
I also think that students wish instructors better understood them, that AI has come to stay. It's kind of like an everyday reality now. And so, as much as students are navigating with being optimistic, they do that with anxiety as well. So, it's not kind of like a replacement. AI is just a learning aid. And students, I know, believe that instructors would rather focus on building good human connection, like instructor and student connection, which is more important for classroom requirement, building on more critical thinking and ethical judgment, instead of saying, hey, we're ruling AI out, because it cannot be ruled out, but it can be used ethically. That's what I believe.
Thank you so much, Patience. And Amanda, what would you underscore or sort of highlight here?
I think from what I'm hearing from students that they want to be given the benefit of the doubt. They don't want instructors to just make assumptions about how they may be using AI. It tells me that there needs to be more open conversation, and we need to be more direct with our students in that conversation. Now, the challenge here is when you're teaching fully online. So teaching blended, I can get that relationship built in person. When you're fully online, you're kind of alone. You kind of see yourself as being alone. So the bigger picture, I would say, would be how are we getting our students to trust us? What are we doing? What does that look like? Because they want us to trust them, but how are we building that trust, especially if you're teaching fully online? So I would say clarity also, not making blanket statements in our syllabus that are open for student interpretation, but being clear about the use of AI, more specifically how, when, and where we use it and why.
Awesome. It makes me think of in online courses, when you click sort of that student view in online courses, how as a metaphor, things can feel and look so different from the student side. And Patience, your comment of student anxiety around using AI and how it's not so black and white and not being sure what to do, and how you see that coming up in tutoring sessions too, Ryan and Larken, just really resonates with sort of how we might be more empathetic to students dealing with a rapidly changing landscape too. One of the things we talked about earlier that really stuck with me is that sometimes AI can be used to sort of bridge a gap that instructors don't realize exists. So students come into a course and the instructors expect them to know how to do something, to have a certain level of reading comprehension, to have a certain skill set that they simply do not have. And students are left on their own to sort of figure out how to fill that gap. And as Amanda points out, in an online-only course, that can feel incredibly lonely. I know Ryan and Larkin are working to fill that gap as tutors also at the school. But my next question to you then is, what can we do as educators to help more proactively bridge learning gaps for students. So they're not sort of left to figure it out on their own with the tools at their disposal.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So I believe that educators should integrate AI like thoughtfully and strategically into their coursework. I mean, assignments could be designed in such a way that is not AI easily, competed with. And assignments should be divided into kind of like scaffolded tasks. Because, for example, I really love our FYE. I'm not saying this because I'm working with FYE, but I love how our courseworks are kind of like broken down into manageable tasks. You get to do something little by little before the interim deadline or before the deadline or within the deadline. So something like that is going to be very helpful for students instead of kind of like a complex big time assignment right in front of you and you have no idea, you don't know what to do. You are going to jump into AI, but AI seriously shouldn't be a replacement for core classroom requirement. It is just an aid. So educators could impute this AI literacy through discussions, analysis, and any other thing they want to do, but it should be done gracefully, personalizing conversations with students, making it more appropriate to have time to know students' needs, what helps them kind of like help they need, skills they need to build on, transforming all this AI thing into kind of like a partner in the classroom, like a learning partner in the classroom, instead of leaving students just jump into AI and replacing with critical thinking, higher learning, and logical assessment, and being so analytical. That is how I see it.
Thank you so much, Patience.
Thank you.
One thing that I think is very overlooked, and it happens in a lot of online classes, and I think it's very important, is just the first discussion where teachers have their students introduce themselves, what major they're probably going into, or just a little bit about themselves. And I think if their major relates to the class, I think that gives a good tell if the student will be engaged in that class, because they will need to know that information for their future career. Whereas if they are just taking that class because they need to graduate, that probably tells you that they may not be as engaged and may be more inclined to use AI. Not every case, but I feel like it's just a good baseline just to get to know your students. And based on how they write that first discussion, it also gives you a good look at how they just write and say everything they say. So.
I think the biggest way really in my opinion, to bridge this gap is to make content more personable. So kind of building off what Patience and Larken said, if it's clear that the teacher hasn't designed the content or the discussions and things like that, then it kind of disengages and disconnects the student from the class and the teacher. And this is particularly hard with online classes. Obviously, in person, you get that personal connection. But I can speak from experience when the class content is engaging and it's real world examples and application rather than just definitions and textbook quotes and references. Then I think the student has way more attention in the class. They want to be much more honest with the work they're handing in, and they're actually going to have better retention of the information. So it's kind of a win for both parties. And they'll be less reliant on AI because they're actually learning in the class, they're paying attention, and they do want to hand in honest work because they're probably interested in the class. And it's pretty rewarding to learn something. That's why students are at Park University, right? So yeah, the biggest thing for me to bridge that gap would be to personalize content and to make sure that the class is as engaging as it can be.
And when you say sort of all three of you too about when students initially enter a course, making sure you find a way to connect and get to know them, it makes me wonder how often in a course do we leave space that's judgment-free for a student to say, I'm overwhelmed. Like, I don't know how to do this. I cannot do this. And are you the first person they're coming to? Or are they having to look elsewhere because they don't feel that presence or they haven't had that space to be able to sort of have an honest response to their feelings about the content of the course? Yeah, that's a really helpful thought. Thank you guys. And Amanda, would you add anything to this?
Um, yes. And it builds right off of what Ryan was just saying. He was an awesome student, by the way. I had the honor of having him in one of my classes. Um, Building that trust with your students, it's surrounded by presence. Like I said, in person, there's a million things you can do, but I'm going to say something about just online for a second. What does that look like online? If we know that presence and building rapport leads to trust and belonging with students, I think those are the best deterrents for misuse of AI because you're building that closeness in that relationship. But again, like I said, what does it look like online? For me, what it looks like is in announcements. We as instructors at Park University, we automatically have ScreenPal accounts that are in our Canvas courses. Doing a video, going through and showing students step by step. All of that is right inside of our Canvas. They're tools to use. Also, we all have introductions that students do. Get those introductions, pull pieces out of it. Maybe Ariana goes by Ari and she introduces herself as Ari, and she has two dogs and she has a child and she's working at In-N-Out. I don't know. And so what I do is I pull all those little tidbits out. In the grade book in Canvas, you can add a notes column. Okay, so you can add a notes column, and right next to their name, you can put next to Ariana, goes by Ari, has two dogs. So I'm going to use that material. And the next time I'm giving her comments and feedback, I'm going to say, hey, Ari. I'm not going to call her Ariana because she's already told me her nickname. So those little things. And you can also, little things for the grade book would be get the total, the student's total at the end of the grade book, move it to the front. So now you're associating the student's name, their grade, and who they are, and what notes you've taken about them. You can do a Spotify playlist, have everybody putting in. So making it engaging and showing students how much you care does take time, but you have to think about it from this. I was in a mentor meeting, and this gentleman who's a longtime professor at our institution, John Bowen, he said something that really resonated with me, and I think about it all the time. He said, be a cheerleader for your students. And I thought about that. And then he said, catch your students doing something right. That really resonated with me. Like, am I doing that? Am I catching them doing something right? Or am I policing? We're not police. So, I mean, there's 100 different ways to engage on Canvas, and I have a lot of tips, but that's a whole nother, that's a whole nother workshop though.
My mind is currently running a mile a minute of how we're going to incorporate all of this into our email instructor campaign. So everyone just get ready for Amanda's tips and tricks to enter your inbox at the start of teaching units. Like this was like 3 aha moments for me from you all just in a row in 3 minutes. So thank you all for your response to that question. And you can see the chat blowing up too. This is really making folks sort of think. My next question to you also comes from our previous conversation. And I think it goes back to what Patience said, maybe about anxiety of not knowing when or how to use AI and the fear of instructors looking at this as black and white, like we're either doing something right or we're doing something wrong. So often using AI has moral ambiguity in our classes because we're using it in conjunction with our own thinking. Right? Like this isn't just sort of like students deciding I'm going to use AI to complete the assignment or I'm not at all. Often it's a gray area where it becomes a thought partner. And I saw that pop up in the chat where we're using those two things together. And the line between what is integrity and what is not can feel incredibly blurry. I think even for instructors sometimes. So my next question is, as educators and teachers and sort of leaders in this changing landscape, how do we make our hopes and expectations clearer for students and sort of ease that anxiety of like, I'm making a solid choice?
I think an important part of it is including your guidelines in the actual assignment. I know every teacher always puts their form of policy of AI in the syllabus, and I know about like probably over 50% of students don't read the syllabus, which sucks, but it's the reality. And I think because it is vague, the policy differs teacher to teacher or assignment to assignment. So I think um, stating in that assignment AI will not be allowed in this, or on the study guide assignment, maybe say it is used, you can use it and use it as a study tool. Because when it comes to like things like study guides, they have to study it regardless. They can't just write it down and get points for the assignment anyway. Um, I think also just building transparency, like maybe the first week or so, um, even just asking students to state if they used AI and where. Maybe like if they are just doing a homework assignment and they clearly state, I used AI for this question because, and they tell you why, and you can give them feedback. And if you like how they used AI, if you don't like how they used it, then you can clearly state after that first week, and they have a good knowledge of you as a professor and how what you allow and what your policy is. And I think that feedback part is very, very important because um, I've had some professors that, if I do good on an assignment, I do good every week, and the feedback becomes the same every time, and I can see that it's copy and pasted. And for a lot of students, they like to see that kind of congratulations if they are doing well, because otherwise, if they see that the instructor is just putting the same feedback every time, are they actually like looking at it, or am I getting 100 for just doing it? So maybe they will start to stray away from doing that good work and things like that. So
I absolutely agree with Larkin there. And I would say that for a common ground, all educators should have or include a clear syllabus statement in their course, because that's a primary place for you to tell what you want. So with your course AI policy, it should be clearly stated if it's prohibited or permitted with citations or freely permitted for the students to know, oh, I can use this, I cannot use this, because the rationale is to protect the students and protect the school as well, because you don't want your student to be caught on plagiarism or to be caught using someone's work without appreciating the person. And I would also say that for most instructors here, it's going to be very good if these are cited also in the CLOs, because it's very important. I opt for CLOs a lot because I'm doing my internship, and you are going to be told, get the CLOs for this course, get the CL, but there's nothing in there. But it's a good idea for you to put your course AI policy over there for it to be transparent for us to know.
I think the easiest way to reduce the ambiguity is really building off of what Larkin said, putting things, within the discussions within each assignment, tailoring it to what that assignment needs. So maybe one has, an AI, the professor wants the student to use AI to find something, or they don't. Put that in, make it clear, or even have a video at the very start of the course, the teacher explaining and demonstrating the correct use of AI within that class. You can use like this, you can use like this, a video, really quick, really short. This is what I'd like you to use. This is how to do it. I prefer if you didn't do this. That makes really clear guidelines. The student has engaged because the teacher has made it for that class. It's not a regurgitated piece of information or just a statement that someone else had made that is put into their material. So I think that's a really, really big point. And also, I do think that making assignments that the students can't really use AI for is a way to get around the ambiguity as well, because it reduces the amount of times they can use it. For example, instead of having a multi-choice 10 question quiz, perhaps it's a minute video or presentation that the student has to do. Okay, maybe the worst, they will read an AI script, but they're doing something, they're actively engaging in it. A couple people might laugh that know about this already, but I'm enrolled in a Spanish class, introduction. I can't speak a word of Spanish. The first assignment, Amanda's laughing, the first assignment was a 1 minute introduction in Spanish. And I had to use a script for it, but I learned so much in that 1 minute just reading it out and actively engaging in the video presentation instead of handing in like half a page of an AI written Spanish introduction. So I think making the assignments a lot more tailored and engaging and something that the student actually has to put work towards will reduce their use of AI in the classroom for things that perhaps aren't quite what it's used for.
I love the idea too of having students also create videos, maybe in lower stakes way than you would think for, a communications course, because it really starts to feel like a conversation between the instructor and the students instead of a policy that we're sort of broadly putting out for students to interpret. So I just love that like bi-directional exchange of videos where students aren't necessarily having to prove something or to be graded high stakes, but to start a conversation for what this looks like in our classrooms. Thank you so much. And Amanda, I'm going to turn it to you again. What have you seen working in communications or policy? I know you see just so many of our courses across Park and you teach them and somehow have found the most incredible students.
Yeah, I would say from what we've heard today, Larkin, that was an awesome idea, by the way. I'm going to do that. AI policy per assignment. So it's actually, because they don't read the syllabus. So, I mean, that's great. I wrote that down. So aside from wanting to hear Ryan speak Spanish, I would say that today's like lesson to take home would be like intentionality, that integrity isn't something that students either have or don't have. It's something that develops when expectations are clear, trust is present, learning feels authentic. And our keynote, I wrote this down, said something about authentically educating graduates. She points out that it's pointing us toward environments where students are invited to think about the why they're learning, not just the how they're being evaluated. So what stood out to me, I would say, from this panel is that students want guidance, not just rules, and partnership, not suspicion. So I could go on and on. I'm a chatter too. So
I feel like the entire, like, I'm looking at the audience and we just look like bobbleheads because everyone is just like, yes, we're hearing what you are saying. And just, yes, yes. I'm wondering if each of you all would do the same before we close the conference, and if you'd be willing to sort of share what is one takeaway that you would leave us here with today. Bring us home. If there's one thing you want all of us at Park to understand about students and integrity and AI, just what would it be? Do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm going to echo what I've said mostly already, but massive advocate for personalized content in classes. Some of the best classes I've had are the ones where you kind of forget you're in a classroom or you're not doing traditional old school pen and paper writing work. You're actually active learning, engaging, communicating. I know online classes are a little bit harder to do that on, but like I said with the video example, putting students perhaps slightly outside of their comfort zone, tweaking traditional teaching methods to make it much more engaging and personalized is going to go a long way to preventing students from abusing the use of AI in the classroom.
Yeah, kind of also just what Ryan's saying. I think students are more likely to act with integrity if they understand the purpose of what they're doing and not just the rules. Just being open and honest from the beginning about what your expectations are as a professor, especially in the assignments, what's going to make them successful throughout the course, and just connecting everything as much as possible to real life scenarios, how it will affect them after they graduate in their careers, and how it will actually help them once they're, it's not just graded. It will help them to help others in their career.
I would also add that as students, be fair and acknowledge the work of others. Cite if you have to, paraphrase if you have to, summarize, and do your work well. And then you become proud of yourself because you didn't cheat and you were ethical, like in all your journey in school. Thank you.
Patience, like, thank you so much for ending it there because it is like it feels good for all of us when we're operating from a place of our values And I think our values with our students, ourselves, our institution are so much more closely aligned than they are not. And so really this is a conversation where we're all working together towards a single goal. So I love the idea of making this teaching moments of working alongside students. I mean, this conference is an example of this. Every time at the end of the student panel, I think of the way that your voices have transformed this entire space. And I cannot thank you all enough for being here, for being at Park, for doing all that you do. Amanda, this includes you too. Amanda, I mean, I always leave this conference so reaffirmed for how much I value Park and specifically Park students. So thank you to this crew, to this panel, like best of luck this semester. I know for some of you, it's your senior year. I hope you have great seasons, great semesters, all of the above, and we will absolutely, for sure, stay in touch. You have, as I said, transformed the meaning of this conference by putting it in the context of what it means for students at Park. And none of it matters if we are not impacting students at Park.